Hey, it's me doing Phils. I just wanted to come on today and share some information that I think might be a little bit helpful for you. If you follow me and you've been keeping up, I just recently moved to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My son goes to Southern University, so he's like 10 minutes away from me. So he comes here every day, to get a home cooked meal and to get his hair braided. He has long hair, so I keep his hair braided. So yesterday he came by and I was braiding his hair. And usually when he comes by and I braid his hair, we usually catch up on some kind of we usually watch some kind of program on, some movie or something that we watch. So yesterday I picked the movie on Hulu. I picked a movie called Who Killed Lacie Peterson. I don't know if you remember back in the early 2000s, there was this huge news story about Scott Peterson and how he killed his pregnant wife on Christmas Eve. It's like a really big story. It's like big, I guess, comparable to the O.J. Simpson trial, except these people were not famous. I'm not really a TV watcher, and I haven't watched TV since the 90s, so I didn't really follow the case about Scott and Lacie Peterson. You hear about it because it was such big news, you can't help but, you run across it on whatever we were watching at the time. I don't even think social media was out like the way it is now at that particular time, because it was like early 2000s. But I watched this show on Who Killed Lacie Peterson. Now, just to for those who did kind of watch it, or who those who don't, I'm just going to give you a little recap. This guy, Scott Peterson, and his wife, Lacie Peterson, they were married. She was pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant. It was Christmas Eve. He left to go to work. He had his own fertile, like grass fertilization business, and he went to go to the warehouse, and she was home, and then she went missing. She was home when he left, but when he came back, she wasn't home. He thought she was at her mom's house because mom didn't live that far. But when he spoke to her mom, she wasn't there, and they hadn't seen her or heard from her all day. And he got a little concerned, so he called the police. And of course, the husband is always the first suspect, or person of interest is what they call it, doing these type of things. So he was the first person interested. From the second that he called the police made up their mind that he was the killer, because he didn't act the way they felt a person would act under those circumstances. They felt like he wasn't grieving, and he wasn't showing any kind of emotions of being upset. Then when they had came down to like a press release, her family did the press release, not so much as him. Her mother, her father, her brothers and sisters, and he wasn't really that much involved because he wasn't a camera person. Really, wasn't in front of the camera type of person. So he didn't be involved. So that made them think that he killed it. And from their feelings, they actually went and they. Let me pause this for a second. I had to turn my phone off beforehand, but I did. So where was I? They just didn't. They thought from the very beginning that he killed his wife. So because he didn't act the way they felt he should act, they didn't really try to find out what happened to Lacie. They just tried to build a case around Scott. And then it came out that he was having an affair. And when that came out, it pretty much sealed the deal. Now the entire world hated him. He was a man who was married, had a beautiful wife. She was pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and he cheated on her. Now she disappeared. He killed her. So that was just the case. And when you watch this movie, Who Killed Lacie Peterson, that case was a case built on emotions. People were emotionally invested in the demise of this guy. They wanted him to pay. It didn't matter that there was absolutely no evidence to back up the fact that he killed her, and that there was plenty of evidence to back up the fact that there could have been someone else who did. But the police didn't go after any of that. They went after emotions. And then when the media got involved, the media really built on the emotions of the people, and it came around the same time when news television shows became 24 hours, 7 days a week. For those who don't know, before the early 2000s, you got news at 6 o'clock and you got news at 11 o'clock. They were both 1 hour programs. You had a 1 o'clock news. Well, actually started at 5. You got 5 to 6 o'clock news, and then you got 6 to 7 news. And then again at 11 o'clock at night, you got news. That was all the news that you received. Early in the morning, you would get news early in the morning, like 7, from 5 o'clock till about 7 or 8. You got news, but that was it. But at this time, you got 24-hour news, so they had to do something to keep people interested. And this was a juicy story. Here you got a murder case, or possible murder case, a missing person case. It was just missing person at first. A pregnant woman whose husband cheated on her. It got all the makings of a soap opera. So they just infused it into the people. They had people, these reporters who are supposed to be reporters. Reporters are supposed to be objective. That's actually what it is. That no longer exists anymore. I actually have a degree in communication with a minor in journalism, and it was important that you be objective. You don't take a side. When I was in school studying journalism, you just reported the facts. You didn't you didn't get your opinion involved in it. But now it's only about opinions. And the reporters all said he was guilty. They kept hammering that guilty, 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 to the point where it came down to his court case. And they really had, the police came in, the detectives came, his prosecutors came in, and they originally said that he killed her the day before Christmas Eve. And on Christmas Eve, he sometime during the night, he loaded up her in his car and he brought it to his office, his warehouse. He put her in the boat, and then he took her and dumped her into the ocean. That's the story that they told, which was blown away within the first 5 minutes. Like, in opening statements, it was 50% of their story was kind of blown away. So then they switched, as it went on, they switched it. But the thing is, they had a jury. Out of the jury, they had like 3 people who was objective, and the rest of them came in there believing he was guilty. Like, they just was gonna make him guilty. The 3 people who were more objective were kicked off of the jury. So it was almost just a setup that this guy was going to be found guilty. And he really was found guilty for cheating. He cheated on his wife. His wife was pregnant, and he was kept. And he wasn't even, actually, they made it like a big thing. He had just met this chick. He had known her for 4 weeks. He's seen her 4 times. That's like in the whole, they've never had sexual relation or anything like that. But he was talking to her on the phone. They were speaking on the phone, and he was cheating, because he was talking to her like he shouldn't have been talking to her. He definitely was cheating. He definitely fouled for that. He's definitely a corrupt, immoral person. But because you cheat, don't necessarily mean that you're gonna kill your wife. Like, he definitely wasn't killing his wife to be with this girl that he just met like 2 weeks before his wife disappeared. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, he would kill his wife for some chick he just met 2 weeks ago, But they didn't tell you that he just met her 2 weeks ago. But what I want to talk today about, the strong emotion. And like, when after he was convicted and they spoke to the jury members, they were, especially one woman in particular, she was adamant. Like, you could tell her hate and the disgust for him. You can see it in the people once they announced it. So many people were outside of the courthouse when they were about to announce it, and a lot of people cheered and jumped, and they were comparing it to the O.J. Simpson case. They were like, "Oh, we got the right verdict this time," like they're so emotionally attached to it, like they know what happened. And I'm an objective person. I'm a person that I like the facts. I go by facts. I don't go by feelings. Feelings is not important to me. Facts are important to me. I'm a fact person. And when you're a fact person, it's hard sometimes to talk to people who are emotionally invested, because people are emotionally invested into things. They don't think clearly. They don't have room for objective information. They just go by feelings, and the stronger they feel about something, the more convicted they are, regardless of all the information you could provide to them, showing them the real information. They'll stick to what they believe. And a bad thing about television and about news in particular is that the news, most people are under the belief, and they will argue to death, and because of this same phenomena, they won't believe that the news is not real. Like, you cannot convince them. I don't even care if you say, hey, listen, I went to school, I studied journalism. They told us that most of the time, the stories that we tell are not even going to be realistic stories. They're just going to be an agenda that the company is pushing or that the sponsor is pushing. This is what we learn in school, but people will argue you down and say, oh, no, the news is 100% correct and real. Like, they will literally argue you down it, but because of the strong attachment and strong emotional feeling, if they felt like the news was incorrect, then their whole world would come crumbling down, and they don't want that. So they hold on to this belief, this strong belief. That's how they can convict a man to death without listening to the facts of the situation. The fact of the situation is that directly the same, that there were so many people who saw this woman walking her dog after the husband was already gone for the day. So many witnesses who, there was a burglary going on right across the street from her, and she was most definitely a Karen. So she went over there and confronted the guys who were burglarizing the place. Even the burglars told them that she came to them and argued with them about what they were doing, because she knew that her neighbors were out of town. Her neighbors had left for vacation for the holidays, and somebody was robbing them. And she confronted the robbers. She was walking a dog, and she went and confronted the robbers about them robbing the house. The burglars even told them this. But the police didn't look at that angle. They just refused because it cleared the husband, and their goal was to arrest the husband and charge this. They liked him for this crime. And people would be hard pressed to believe that cops lie, or that cops, make up stuff, because it's a conviction, it's a feeling, it's an emotion. Now, the people who kind of run this world, they understand that emotion, and that's what they kind of bank on. Because, like, when we were in school, we think we're programmed to think, but what we're programmed to do is memorize things and spit it out at a later date. They go through 12 years of deprogramming us on how to really think, because if you learn how to think, you can learn how to change your life. And that's what I kind of want to go on to say, that strong emotion, that attachment, that feeling. That is what brings about the things that you want. Like, this man had no way of not, it was no way that this guy, Scott Peterman, was gonna beat this. It just was no way that, his family got the best lawyer. The lawyer showed proof after proof and tore down the prosecutors, their whole skit, their whole program. He one by one knocked down every single brick that they built up. And he not just knocked it down, but he demolished it. He did a great job of of being a defendant for this guy. But even with absolutely no evidence and all of the bumbling and fumbling that they saw the prosecutors do, 12 people took that information and they convicted him. And it was absolutely nothing to do with facts. It had all to do with feelings. And that's what I want to put you to focus on today, feelings, and how important feelings are. Because if you can have the right feelings about anything, you can manifest whatever it is that you want. That guy, Scott Peterson, had no way of overcoming the feelings of the masses. So many people had this feeling that they wanted him in jail, and they wanted him on death row. So that's why it manifested. I don't care, no matter how many facts he would have presented. I don't care if he had 10 of the best lawyers pointing out every single thing that's wrong, even if they had brought the killer into the courthouse and said, this is the killer, and the killer said, they said, yeah, I killed her, I'm the one that did it, they would have still convicted him, because you get the thing that you are passionate and believe and have feelings attached to. That is what manifests into reality. That feeling, that belief attached to that feeling. There's no way that Scott Peterson, because there was so many people. Now there was people who didn't think he did it too. There's a lot of people who didn't think he did it, but the people who didn't think he did it were not as strong and boisterous as people did, because the people who think he didn't do it, as soon as somebody said that they didn't think he do it, the rest of the people would jump on that person and would be like, oh, either you was in love with him, or you were delusional, or you was you hated women. Like, it was just that type of thing. Like there was the first juror who was kicked off the jury. He was kicked off because they really wanted him off, because they knew that he was a person who was actually following the facts. What happened was, as a jury, you're not supposed to discuss what's going on in the case. So he kind of was the person who was kind of saying amongst the jurors, his like, oh, that didn't make sense. Well, if he was discussing the facts, not his opinion on what he felt, but he was discussing the facts, and they're not supposed to discuss the facts. But he was saying stuff like, they didn't really prove that. Yeah, well, that's what the news was telling us, but they didn't really prove that's what happened. And so somebody snitched. One of the jurors snitched, because I guess they probably seen he was a person who was going to really check the facts. So they told that he was having this kind of discussions. So they got rid of him. So when he came out when he got kicked off, of course, all of the media, because they didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. So when he came out, all the media ran after him and was asking him all these questions about what happened. And he was basically saying, listen, if I had to vote today, I would say he was not guilty, because I don't think the everything the prosecutors, every person that witnessed the prosecutor on stand, they end up giving better information for him than they did for the prosecutor. So I would say that I would say he's not guilty. Well, this juror got all kinds of death threats. People want to kill him, because he was saying, just like they didn't prove to me that he had killed them. So they were threatening. He showed us like a bunch of hate mail that he had gotten about people threatening to kill him. They scratched his car up. They were doing a whole bunch of things to intimidate him, because he was basically saying, just saying what the facts were. But see, that's how strong those emotions are in people. Emotions is that strong. It's kind of hard for you to, that's how you manifest the things that you want. So that's what I want to go with there, about that strong feeling, that strong feeling attached to a result that you want. So if you want to have anything in your life, if you want to start manifesting anything in your life, what you have to do is you have to, first know what it is that you want. Now, what these people wanted was, they wanted Scott Peterson to go to jail and to be sentenced to death. That was the goal. So they believed it. They did everything every single day. The news media was up there just brainwashing the people, just telling them over and over again, because they were making up stuff. They were making up stuff. Like they made up they said, oh, when the police came to his house, it was a smell of bleach. He had washed his clothes and the house smelled like bleach. None of that was true. They just made it up and they put it out there, and people believed it. There was no reports about his house smelling like bleach. They talked to all the police officers who came to his house originally. Nobody smelled bleach. There was no indication that he had cleaned the house in any way, which is really strange, because if they're saying he murdered his wife in the house, then there was no blood or anything in the house. So they said, well, maybe he strangled her to death. So they had a lot of maybes and ifs, things that happened, but there was no evidence of anything. And when they did find the body, they found only a torso. They didn't find the rest of her body. And to my knowledge, to this day, they never found the rest of her body, just the bottom part of her. And they found the baby too, but then also they found out the baby had lived like I think an extra week or so after the baby was born and lived for about a week. So where was the baby if Scott Peterson was the one who did it? Like he was around from the day she was missing. He was surrounded by police and family members. So where was the baby kept? I don't know. So it was a lot of things that indicated that this man did not have anything to do with his wife. He was a scumbag for cheating on his wife. He's a horrible person. He don't have any morals, but don't mean that he killed her. Really don't. There's no evidence to prove that he killed her. But emotions. That's what I'm saying. If you get your emotions attached, find out what it is that you want and emotionally attach yourself to that thing that you want. A lot of times they call it your why. The reason they call it your why is because it has to be something that you can emotionally attach yourself to. So if you emotionally attach yourself to the thing that you desire and that you just believe with all your heart that you want or need this thing, that this thing is going to happen, it will happen, because that's how you manifest the things that you want, by having a strong desire, by having feelings attached to it, by having it something that those feelings and that desire is what drives you towards getting the thing that you want. Now, if you follow me, you know that I talk with empty nesters about building a legacy for your children. And the reason I talk about that because that's a driving force for me. I want to build a legacy for my children. I've done my part of raising them where now they're out the house and they're on their own and they're doing their thing. but so now I have to move to the next stage. And that next stage to me is to make sure that they're good for the rest of their life and their children and their children's children. I just was watching this thing. Somebody shared a video with me in my messages. I was just watching a little while ago, and what I found, they told this thing about the Kennedys, which the Kennedys are born with, but I didn't know this particular thing. It said that when a Kennedy, in this video, the guy said that when a Kennedy is born, they're born automatically with $5 million, which goes into a trust fund for them. And that they have access to the trust fund when they're either 21 or 25 years old. But in that meantime, that $5 million has grown into a way more $1 million by the time they reach the age where it becomes available to them. That's what I would like to do for my children. That's called leaving a legacy for your children, where your children are born with $5 million that grows to the time they become an adult, and then they have assets and they can do things, you train them and they can do things. That's generational wealth. We all need to start focusing on that. That's what I would like to do. That's what I'm going to be doing for my family. I am going to leave a legacy so that when my children are born, they're born with a certain amount of money in a trust fund already set up for them that they have access to when they're 25, 21, 25. I want to make sure my family is taken care of. And I think most people should, but it's all about a mindset. And the mindset is the part where you have to have that absolute conviction of feelings, the same way those people were absolutely convicted, where a person as me who's watching it on the outside, and I didn't follow it during the court case, I didn't really know. I mean, I heard about it, knew about Scott Peterson killed his wife, and didn't really follow the facts about this case. So when I'm looking at it, a person who's looking at it and seeing the facts of this particular side of how they're presenting it, you start saying, well, this is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I see a lot of things that's absolutely crazy and I see how people get so emotionally attached to it. Like for example, the whole thing that just recently happened, and now I guess it's over with. We don't talk here about it, because see, that's how the news go. Like now we're on to the next fear thing. As long as they keep you in a certain feelings thing, and one of the strongest feeling to have is fear. To get you in a fear mode, keep you in that constant state of fear, they can control you. If you people person is emotionally charged and in a fear mode, they're easily to manipulate. They're easily to be controlled. And that's what the news is about. That's why I've been stopped watching the 90s when I, knew that it was only about manipulation and control. And that's why the news is always about bad and traumatic information, because the goal is to keep you at unrest, to keep you emotionally depressed so that you vibrate on a lower level than what you would if you're being a positive person. Anybody who really, I mean, I think that everybody should turn the news on. I think nobody in that world should watch. I think watching news is the worst thing you could possibly do yourself. It's like you are emotionally abusing yourself. And you're okay with that. Like you love the abuse. Oh, I'm an abused person. I'm appropriately abused myself by turning on the news, because all it is manipulation and to keep you in a fear mode. 97% of stuff they're telling you is not the truth. It's not happening. I'm not even gonna go into it because I know Facebook will block me and censor me. They don't want you to have the truth either. So because they all work together. But I just want to show you how it's very good to get emotionally attached to things that you desire and want. You're so emotionally involved into it that it can't help but come true for you. Because the more emotionally involved you are, the more belief you would get about that subject. So whatever it is that you want changed in your life, become more emotionally involved in it. Have it so anchored to a belief that it can't help but manifest. So I hope it's something you got out of today's story. All right, have a good one. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.